Hello and welcome to
Absolute Game Off.
Nerd! We are your non-geek, non-nerd hosts, JP and Rohan. And with us, we have a no-good collector of comics. He's no good, this guy. Who is this no-good guy with us today, Rohan?
We have Justin. So actually, again, we've talked about it a million times already, but we went to Terrificon in Connecticut. We met up with a lot of people we already knew. Obviously, then those people know people, know people, know people. Justin, aka No Good with the KNOW, not no good, was one of them, and we met him and hung out a little bit, which was awesome. And we always start off the question, what's your origin? I'm really interested to hear Justin's answer because he has something unique to him that no one else we've had on the show, which is his father is, that I learned that weekend, is Greg LaRocque, a very famous comic book artist. So I'm curious to find out, when I ask this question, your origin story, does that mean you steered away from comics as a young kid, or did it lead you right into comics? So Justin, first off, how you doing?
Yeah, no, I'm doing great, guys. I really appreciate you guys having me on. I'm glad that we were able to line this up, and I've been looking forward to this. I love what you guys are doing, yeah, definitely ready for tonight. So, yeah, I'm excited. And to answer your question, I mean, well, first of all, I like that you're considering both options, because I think most people that I've ever talked to about it are like, oh man, you must have a massive collection, and all your dad's comics and all this other stuff, and you must have been collecting for years and all this stuff. And on the contrary, it's quite opposite. As you said, first, I had pushed comics away as a little kid because I viewed everything as the family business, and I didn't want anything to really do with the family business. So for me, if my dad was working on a project, he had deadlines and doing artwork. For me, it was more like, hey, when are we going outside to play catch, or when are we going to, go do this or whatever. I just was interested in other things. And to be fair, I also hated reading when I was a little kid. Like, I thought that was like
JP still hates reading to this day. So
yeah, it's like I always viewed it as like a punishment. Like, if I'm in school, I'm like, what did I do wrong? Why you make my dad would be like, hey, you want to check out the new book that I created? I'm like, why? What did I do? Did I do something wrong? Like, you're making me read this book, even though it was like The Flash, in the 90s or whatever. But I was just like, yeah, no, I don't want to read that book. Like, I'm okay. So yeah, like I didn't have that bug for comics in any sense of it until I was 29 years old, when I actually could say I genuinely found an interest and a passion for comics as a whole.
And I was going to say, I don't think I think it's not a unique story. You're like, in the sense that, like, I think a lot of kids want to blaze their own path. And like you said, like, the family business is already this. So it's like, you're like, okay, what can I do to make myself my own person?
Yeah.
And I think that's very, very, like, I don't think you're like I think many people in your situation would be the exact same way.
Totally. And of course, like, just other industries or whatever the case may be. I definitely have heard, similar stuff. So yeah, like, for me, like, and again, I was into, I got into like a lot of the card games, collectibles, things. I was collecting, like, I did Pokemon for a long time when it was like, the thing in the 90s. And then from there I got into like Yu-Gi-Oh and fell into Magic the Gathering. And I actually got really serious with that at one point, as far as like playing and all that, as I got older, and trying to like actually play for like career wise. It was pretty intense at one point for what I was doing. But yeah, like, comics to me just was never a thing. I think I visited a comic book store when the New 52 was being released, and I think I just went in because I didn't even like, I was like in some town area. My girlfriend at the time was like shopping somewhere, and I just like walked down the street and found that spot just to walk into. But even that, I wasn't into anything. So it wasn't until, like I said, it's really 2018 that I got into the hobby, and it was kind of by accident, because I had a friend of mine who was leaving work, that I worked with, a coworker who was leaving the company, and he was like, hey, you want to go to get pizza or whatever on my last day? I was like, sure. So we went out, we got pizza, and afterwards, he's a little older than me, and he's like, hey, there's a cool like comic shop there. You want to go check it out real quick? I go there once in a while. I was like, oh, all right, yeah, I'll go with you. We have a little time or whatever. So we went in, and he walked around. I think he grabbed like 2 or 3 books off the shelf. I was just looking at everything. I was following like the movies and stuff at that time, so I thought like superheroes.
Real quick, did your friend know who your dad was? Like, is that why he maybe was like, hey, would you?
No.
Want to go to... Okay.
No. Yeah, no, never shared it with him at that point. And then like he bought his books, and we were walking out the door, and then he like stopped me as we were like leaving the comic book shop. He's like, whoa, dude, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm I'm following you. Like, we're leaving. Like, and he's like, no, he's like, you can't go into a comic book store and not support your local comic shop. You got to buy something. And I'm like, oh, all right. Okay. Yeah. All right. I get it. Let me look around again. Let me, so I take another like few minutes and I just look, and I didn't even know where to look. I'm just looking on the wall with all the new books basically. And I gravitated towards, at the time there was a series called Infinity Wars going on, and it was Jerry Duggan that was writing it. I only initiated it because, you know, it was, the movies were being hyped up and stuff at that time. And
so you hadn't even been watching the MCU prior to that?
No, I was watching, but not very closely, and it wasn't enough for me to get into comics. Like, but I was watching.
But even when like Man of Steel and what the heck was it called, Batman versus Superman, went over, the Flash got into the movies and the Grant Gustafson series, you didn't like get into it then, even though that's what your dad sort of was drawing, right? Or had drawn.
Right. Like I watched them, you know, and I was just like, oh, these are fun movies. Cool. Like, you know, this was cool. I think even like the MCU, I had kind of skipped on some, and like I had to catch like Guardians of the Galaxy, I didn't watch till like a few years after it came out, that kind of thing. So it was like I was clearly not, you know, diehard, you know, go to the theater.
Casually watching.
Yeah. So when I saw this book, I'm like, oh, Infinity Wars. I know that movie's coming out, Infinity War. You know, maybe that ties into it. I don't know. So I just bought a book because my friend was basically making me. So I buy this
whole
book.
Soprano thing, like, hey, you don't leave here unless you get a book.
Yeah. Like he turns around with a bat and it's just like, hey, buddy, like, oh god. So I leave, go home that day, and I have this book, and I'm like, all right, I guess I read it. Like, what do you do with the comic? You read it. So okay, let me take a look and see. I didn't even know like how to follow along at first, but kind of just, you know, made sense of it. And sure enough, I get to the end, and the ending's like bonkers, and bonkers in like something big happens, and then it ends on a cliffhanger, and I'm like, well, what happened? Like, how are you going to end a book like this? This is ridiculous. Like, I thought it was like a novel, like you get a whole thing, you know? And so I literally went back to the store the next day, and I was like, hey man, I was here yesterday. I bought that book, Infinity Wars. It was issue number 1. Do you have the second one? Cause it was really good. I really liked it. And he's like, oh no, that just came out. Yeah. I'm like, oh, it's new. He's like, yeah, the next one will be out. So yeah, next month. I'm like, oh wait, I had no idea that comics worked like that it was like a monthly thing, and that it ended on cliffhangers on purpose, like TV shows or whatever. Yeah. And like, so I was like hooked, and I'm like, okay, I need to like, I'm like, well, so he's like, yeah, sorry, you're not going to be able to know what happens until next month. I was like, kind of bummed. So I was like, all right, well, I'm here. And I just started buying like a few other comics that I just thought looked cool to me. All new books, like no back bins or anything like that at the time, but new stuff off the rack. And I just started going
real
home.
Quick, was this Zap Comics?
No, it was not. It was called Fat Moose, which is actually still around in Parsippany, New Jersey, which is probably like 25 minutes, 30 minutes from Zap, not too far. Small shop, nice. You know, the owners, actually, I think the owners changed recently. I was just there not too long ago for the first time in like, for 3 years. But because I worked near there at the time, it was like my close shop to go to. But yeah, like it was very, you know, and then from there I got hooked. Like I just started to have all these books, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't have any friends or anything to talk to about it. I wasn't even following YouTubers or anything. I had no connection to anybody other than my dad, which people would be like, well, isn't that enough? Like, you know, but
so a question then real quick.
Yeah.
After you got hooked then off that first book, did you then hit up your dad and be like, hey dad, maybe you were onto something here?
So I actually don't think I told him until like a few months later, when I started to really go down like a rabbit hole. And I should clarify, like when I get into something, like I'm all in, no matter what it is, whatever I'm collecting or a sport or something, whatever it is, I'm very competitive and very much, you know, want to do the best or be the best or just, or, you know, have the most fun with it or whatever it is. So, yeah, but like, I think it was a few months in where I actually started to, I think it was like later that month, I made an Instagram page. I was like, what else do I do with these books other than, you know, I've read them once now. This is great. They're really cool. I wonder if like I make an Instagram account. I start sharing them. So I started to do that. And I made a separate one. I made KnowGood Comics because my personal one, like none of my friends, you know, no one would want to see me post.
Where did
comics.
the KnowGood come from?
So I used to be very much into the music scene and audio engineering. I went to school for it in New York years ago, and musician, and wanted to be a writer at one point was a goal of mine. And I don't do a lot of that stuff anymore, but I wanted to have my own record label, and I was still in like high school when I was like thinking all this stuff up, and I came up with KnowGood Records as like an idea for this label, and I always liked that idea. My friends were always like, I thought it's such a clever, you know, idea, or, you know, fun you know, thing to do. And then you know, that went nowhere. And so later I got comics, and I'm like, oh, I used to do this thing back in high school. I had KNOW, play on words. So I'll just go with that. So I made that. And it's funny because now a lot of my friends just call me No Good. Like that's actually just like a reference that
Your
most
friends even outside of comics.
no, I should say in comics.
Okay.
But it's just become such a, I guess, easy off the tongue, phrase to say that it's, and I turn if someone says it. So, and it actually comes up more often than not, even in things that are out of context that you say No Good to. But as I'm sure you can imagine, but yeah, so that's kind of where I came up with the name. I started to post just the pictures, the images of the books, and then I started to notice that like this, like same people kind of started liking my stuff, commenting here and there. I would kind of look at their pages and see, oh wow, like they post books too. This is kind of cool. And then I just started connecting with people, and that's where I discovered like the community, which I had no idea was a thing until, like a few months afterwards, and kind of just went from there. And it was just Instagram at the time. So,
what year was this roughly?
So this was 2018. Okay. Like August is when I think I was or was my first time like in the comic book shop. I think I made it like the next month or something like that.
So when you went back to find issue 2 and it wasn't there, did you pick up then something else to read, or did you just, okay, I'll come back in a month?
Yeah, so I and I really can't remember, like I want to say I grabbed a few other single issues.
Probably Omega Man 3, I'm thinking.
No, yeah.
Nope. He's no good, not no bad.
No, like, and I think I even like talked to the owner, just recommendations, that sort of thing, and ultimately was just kind of gravitating towards the artwork that I thought was cool. I think Donny Cates was doing Venom at that time, like early.
Is that the Venom run that had the debut of Null?
Yeah. So like all that stuff, which is where I started to learn about like even like FOMO and all that stuff, because like I remember like months later kind of hearing about this issue number 3 being a thing and all this stuff. And I remember going back to the shop and like casually browsing, and the guy's like, "You looking for issue number 3?" I was like, yeah, I mean, just all of it, and he's like, "Yeah, no, we don't have that, like we're sold out of that." I'm like, okay, just curious. But it was still, yeah, it was early on in his run that I think that a lot of that stuff was going on. But yeah, I don't know, just downhill from there. And and then of course, like YouTube came along. I started to just start seeing people who would post on Instagram and then like say, "Come check out my channel." And I remember like not liking the idea of like going to another platform at that time. Like, and I should clarify too, I do marketing for a living. A lot of it's like website based, and also digital ads and things like that, but also social media. So very into the social media world. But like, for whatever reason, when I made this account, it's Instagram and it's just comics, I was like, people were like, "Check out my YouTube channel." I'm like, nah. I was like, I don't want to go to another thing and download this app. Like, I don't know. It was just so like maybe old school of me, but I just didn't want to, like, I just thought it was weird. Like, why? I'm like, post it over here. Like, post it on Instagram. Like, what are you doing over there in YouTube land? And then little by little, of course, like just started to find the rest of the community over there. And then I started meeting people that were like doing stuff where they talked like about the books that they read. And I think that's the thing that like drags me to this, or pulls me to this the most in this hobby, is just like reading something and then just like talking about it with friends. What did you think? What shook you the most? What did you love or what did you hate about it? And vice versa. And and that's where I have a show with my buddy John. We've been doing with X-Men now since 2020, and all that stuff. So the YouTube channel eventually kicked off on my side too. So join the party,
Yeah.
Now these friends are all 3D friends. They're not online like that. So you.
Yeah. Like everybody I met. There's like a handful of people now that are just happen to be local that are good friends of mine, but we met through the IG.
Right,
community.
but you can go meet with them, go to shows together, stuff like that. Okay.
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah, like dude, man, this is and I'm sure you guys can attest to this too. Like just like the friendships and like almost like family level connections that you make with people here is like unreal. Just over the years.
Justin, you're in New Jersey, right?
Yeah.
So I think JP, like, that northeastern corner is a good spot for the hobby in terms of like actually meeting people in 3D. I feel like. Oh yeah. So that's definitely nice. Talk to me about. I know. So since I met you in August, I've been following you since, and it's obvious that you're very big. Like Wednesday's New Comic Book Day, you're picking up so you're a big reader.
Yeah.
Talk to me. What runs are you reading currently?
So I mean, I am all over the board, and I should clarify, like, I started out just like, I mean, once I found out about like keys and all that stuff, like I definitely went down the rabbit hole of just wanting to, get everything that I was currently loving. And then I also I thought the idea of like collecting runs. I know we had talked about that, Rohan, a little bit. Like the idea of collecting a certain run of something seemed really cool to me. If I Daredevil was like my first like guy to really get into. So reading like his original volume 1 stuff, I was like, I'm going to collect all Daredevil, partially because it was the cheapest, like at least at that time.
You're talking about his original volume 1 from the Silver Age?
Yeah.
Oh, because people hate that.
So, like the earliest stuff. I mean, obviously, like you get the Frank Miller stuff and everything.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. People nowadays talk. And now, again, there's a degree of campiness that comes with any Silver Age book, right? Like they're all very campy, very kind of corny. But you hear specifically people talk about Daredevil did not get good until Frank Miller got aboard.
For sure.
I have not read the Silver Age Daredevil, but that is a frequent thing I have heard about that.
Yeah, and I think I think it was more the artwork too that drawn me to just that particular. One, it was the characters. I know that Netflix series was like hot at the time, and I was like in love with it, and I just love the concept of Daredevil as a character. So for me, I'm like, oh, let me go back and get all like this older stuff. When I did start going to shops and back issue bin stuff and realizing all these things are like in a $1 bin, a lot of them, I'm like, oh, this is doable compared to like Fantastic Four or Amazing Spider-Man. I'm like, all right, I can't quite, buy those on a whim.
Just to kind of a tangent off of that, like I agree. I loved the Daredevil show on Netflix.
Yeah.
And it's a type of story in terms of like who the character is and what his abilities are, that I had several non-comic book, like friends of mine that didn't grow up on comics that also thoroughly enjoyed the Daredevil show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think it was a good way for anybody to connect kind of on that level. And they did did a really good job with it. But yeah, so anyway, as far as like books I'm reading right now, I mean, I've been talking nonstop about Namor by Jason Aaron right now. It's only the 4th issue out. I think it's only an 8-issue series altogether, which I found out. And so I'm a little bummed because I don't want it to end. It's that good, or I'm enjoying it that much, I should say. But like, I'm not a Namor guy at all. Up until you and I, Rohan, talked a little bit. I know you had. I know a little bit of your story and just like Silver Surfer, Iron Man 1, some of those like iconic first issues that you've talked about, and Namor, being right at that same time, 1968, like all that stuff. So that stuff was on my radar, and I just thought it was interesting that as we had talked about it, was my interest started to like peak a little more in that character, based on Jason Aaron. That was strictly the only reason.
It's really interesting, right? Like he really isn't a popular character in any capacity, but he is legitimately the first Marvel character.
Yeah.
Like he is the first.
He was way popular in the 40s, Golden Age.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the wars and everything else. Yeah.
Was Fire and Water.
I don't know. I don't know if again, I can't speak. I wasn't around then, obviously, but like, was Namor actually popular, or was it just the correlation with the war, those covers, the campaign and propaganda around it? Was it that, or did people actually like Namor in the 40s? I have no idea. I'm just
no, that's fair.
Think about it. When we collected in the 90s, how often did you see Namor?
Never.
So he wasn't popular then, but when you look back at any Golden Age book, it's him and Human Torch and a lot of that stuff, and on the covers. But I mean, my point is like Captain America fighting the Nazis or Namor and Human Torch.
Is that a product of just that's all? I mean, they didn't have the wealth of characters that they had by the 90s. So I'd be again, it'd be curious to talk to someone that, someone's grandparents or something that was around then and was into this hobby, to pose that question. Or you could even, if you can find like sales data, like how popular was Namor compared to like Captain America, or it'd be interesting to see. But either way, he was prominent in the 40s. You are correct there, JP. I mean, he was even prominent, I'd say, through the Silver Age. So yeah,
it's been definitely like a character I still don't know too much about, other than what I'm reading now. So,
and I think that Marvel starts to bring the character back into the forefront once they're going to bring him in movies. Because if you go back to Endgame and Miles Morales, those things, as they started to make the movies, they have like a 10-year backlog as they start to introduce them. Guardians of the Galaxy, things of that nature. Null, 2018 when he came out, now he's in a movie. So there's like a plan for them as to when they're going to introduce them. So they must be. But I think the guy who played Namor got into some problems off
did
the
he?
screen. I think he
Oh.
got into some problems. So
Hmm.
that's why you haven't heard much more about him coming back, because
I was wondering.
I was kind of stoked to have him in there, because as you play this game with the what are we going into next? The
Multiverse Saga, Secret Wars.
Like phase 5 type stuff, or oh
yes, so the phase 5 with the multiverse, and the big storyline for that multiverse was the one with the Illuminati, correct? So you're gonna need, right? The Illuminati is what found the multiverse.
he's in the Illuminati, as you're saying. Okay.
So they need him in there, and they need Fantastic Four, and you need big superheroes that can fight these much bigger villains, because all you have now is street level and Thor, and I don't know what the hell Thor's doing. So you know what I mean? So, like, you need some big power hitters. You need Silver Surfer. You need Fantastic Four, the Thing, the Hulk. Like, you need all those guys to really bring a big cosmic battle to life. In it's what's it called? I can't even think of it right now.
Talking about like Secret Wars.
Secret Wars, Doomsday.
Thank you. The Secret Wars. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Secret Wars. Yeah. Sorry. So
yeah.
Drawing a blank. Sorry.
No, but you're right. I mean, if they were going to pull that off, they're definitely going to need to introduce, obviously, Doom and all that stuff. Kind of coming in. I didn't know about the actor.
Covers now. A couple of those variant covers, Doom, and he's always been popular, but Namor is. I think they're going to make him. They were going to make him a prominent role in that movie, but I don't know what's happening now with that guy.
Yeah, I was wondering why I didn't hear much about him.
Yeah. All right. So, in addition to Namor, anything else that you're really into right now?
Yeah, like I'm always reading all the X titles. Unfortunately, they're not as thrilling as they once were. As far like, I love the Krakoa era that just ended not too long ago.
Is that Hickman?
Yeah, like that's what Hickman like started off, and then it kind of got taken over by Jerry Duggan and a few other writers. As he went on to do other projects himself. But yeah, like the new stuff. I mean, the Uncanny X-Men has been pretty solid so far, and hopefully that'll all turn around for a lot of it. But the other book I just read. Man, it's so good. Aliens, like the movie Aliens versus Avengers. I don't know if you guys saw like the release for this. So it's Jonathan Hickman doing the writing. It's only 4 issues, and they're releasing one issue like once a quarter. I don't know what the holdup is, or it's like issue 2 just came out like last week, or this past Wednesday, and it's fantastic. Like I read issue 1, I was like, oh man, I can't wait for more of this, and then like months went by and I'm like, what's going on here? And then I found out they're just like, I don't know if it's on purpose or what, but the next one didn't come out. And then issue 3 doesn't come out till February. So I'm like, damn. But Isad Ribic is doing the artwork for it. And it's very rare nowadays for him to be doing interior stuff. He's more of a covers guy. So I love his work. I loved his stuff through the Thor God of Thunder with Jason Aaron from the 2012 stuff or whatever, and everything else. So I jumped on it. It's so good, man. I'm not an Aliens guy either. I'm not a big
I wonder again, I'm not a modern guy, so I can't really speak, but I wonder if it's coming out so much time in between to give him, because he's like a painter, right? So maybe his like time it takes for him to crank out interiors, maybe he's a little longer. I have no idea. I'm just speculating.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, he definitely was on runs where he did monthly stuff. He was actually at Terrificon 2 years ago, or 2 years before this past year, 3 years ago, 2022. Yeah, 2 years. So I'd met him there. I actually got you can't really see it, but up top here is a Storm piece. That
I can see it. I can see it.
And that was watercolors, like live right there, like all that stuff. So that was really cool. And he was a really, really great guy, a real sweetheart. So, but anyways, those names drew me to this book. I was like, Alien. It sounds like these crossovers. I don't know. I feel like sometimes it could be corny or cheesy or whatever when you're mashing Aliens and a Marvel set or whatever. But I mean, it goes really deep. It's a lot more. And it's only like I said, 4 issues. You're trying to squeeze all this in. But Hickman's good at that stuff, man. He's really good at like building up this like big. The stakes are high. There's like a little bit of a time jump of things, so you kind of get a big picture of the world and the universe over the span of 1,000 years, like in a book. But it's like it makes sense. It's weird. It's really well done. But anyways, that's a great one. Yeah, I don't know. Like there's a few different indies that I always try out different indies just because you never know what you're gonna kind of fall in love with. I love like Saga had when that was I know it's still coming out, like taking a chance on that. I love that. I have to catch up on that more. But anything Jeff Lemire does, I'm a diehard for Jeff Lemire, Tom Taylor, those writers. I find myself going more towards writers more than characters at this point. So it hasn't let me know. Like once I know who I like, just helps. And granted, I'll give other writers a shot for certain characters. Right now, X-Men, there's a lot of newer writers too, so I get a little bit of both worlds. But definitely Jason Aaron, another big one. Scott Snyder, just kind of follow their leads and dive into stuff like that. Oh, that's another one. Absolute Batman, all the absolutes. Those have been really good.
I was gonna say, are you into DC at all? So that answers that question.
Yeah, so like I wasn't. I actually purposely didn't collect DC when I first got into like collecting. Like maybe the first month I was like buying everything, and then I was like, okay, like this is not realistic to buy everything. So let me just buy one thing. What do I like most? Falling into the Marvel side. So I'm just not gonna buy DC because not that I don't like DC, it's just like my priority is Marvel. So I was buying Marvel, and I remember, it wasn't until Tom Taylor came out with Nightwing 78. Which is a series that he like took over midway through this run, and it's like my favorite run. Like it's so good. I've talked about it all this time. He just finished his portion of it. It was like 50 issues or whatever that he wrote for a couple of years, Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo. But so Nightwing, I got into Nightwing. I'm like, oh my God, like I know nothing about Nightwing, don't care about Nightwing at all. But Tom Taylor, I've always liked, I trust him. Let me get into this. First issue I read, Nightwing 78, literally brought tears to my eyes. Never cried to a comic before until I read that book. And it's funny. So my wife and I, every once in a while we'll read a comic book together, and she's not into comics. She's not into comics. She's like not like a fan, but she likes the movies. She's entertained by them. She doesn't like follow a lot of details and stuff, but she likes to read, and like once in a while I'm like, hey, I got this cool book, I think it's worth your time, let's read it. And we'll actually literally sit down together and like read it out loud, or like take turns like reading pages almost. Mind you, we have no kids, we have 2 dogs, that's it. So we read these, and I found this book and I'm like, babe, you got to read this book. I literally like teared up to it, and she like laughed at me a little, like she's like, really, like you teared up to this guy in blue spandex, Nightwing. I'm like, just give it a shot. So she's like, all right. So I'm reading and I get to this one page, and sure enough, like I'm halfway through this moment and my voice cracks, and she's like, stop. She's like, give me the book. Like, I'll read it. I was like, you read it. So she starts reading all confident, and she legitimately could not finish the same page that I was trying to read. and it's and I recommend it to you guys. Like, even you might not be Nightwing guys or whatever, even to this day, like you don't need to know anything about anything.
Well, remember, JP hates reading, so
no, but JP, man, but if you have any sort of relationship, whether you're a father to kids or you're a kid to your parents, that it hits home like very, very heavy. It's very emotional moments in that particular issue. You don't got to read too much, JP, just that one issue. But anyways, I digress. So things like that, I find myself leaning more towards the writers than anything else for the most part.
Now, also, with the comics,
you got me intrigued as to what the story was. So sorry.
Wait, what's that? JP,
I'm sorry. I just said you had me intrigued as to what the storyline was. So.
Oh, nice. I
just said he had me intrigued as to the storyline.
Yeah, got it. So just to say, we're talking about comics. However, I look behind you and I see art, I see comics, I see Funkos, I see action figures, I see Legos, which we talked about right before we got on.
Oh yeah, I forgot to.
So
flex there for a
second. You're collecting it all. Then anything related with this kind of genre, then.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad. This just came out. It's the new. I don't know if you guys follow One Piece. It's a manga and anime show. And it came out in like 96. It's like around.
Is that a puzzle?
No, sorry. This is like a box of booster packs. Like a whole like playing cards, like Pokemon cards, kind of. But to your point of collecting a lot of things, like that was just released today, as part of their release date or whatever. But yeah, you're right. No, like I definitely go through a lot of phases of different things, and a part of me is just like when I see something, I'm like, man, I gotta have it. That kind of ththing, which you can imagine that's a dangerous like mindset to have with anything you're trying to collect. Like if you go to a shop or anything like that. But yeah, like the Lego game. I know we talked a little before we went live, but like Lego was something as a kid I always loved, and then but I wasn't working as a little kid. I didn't have money, or I had my allowance, and that was it. And I remember my cousins always had like these bigger sets that we talked a little bit about, like some of the big sets that are out there, and I was always so jealous about all of them. And I'm like, man, like one day I'm gonna have all that. And like you know, now that I have a job and I'm an adult, like I'm just like, I'm like, well, I'm gonna buy it. Like I'm just gonna buy that because I can. Like that's right. Like I'm gonna do this thing now. So
yeah, I will say I literally feel like that Lego X-Men Mansion set. I think I saw for the first time on Sunday, and I feel like then you posted on Monday about having it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, I like pre-ordered like right when it dropped. It dropped like a few days prior. If you did it, you got like a few other little like collectibles. You got like this like library or bookshelf, like kind of like a bookshelf. This is not X-Men related, but technically you could find it in an X Mansion. And it came with a Cerebro, which was like unique to if you pre-ordered. So I was like,
like
I
a
gotta
Lego
have that.
Cerebro.
Yeah, like a little
that's
mini
kinda
one.
tight.
It's like over my shelf, but yeah, it's a cool little set that you can't necessarily. I don't think you can like purchase. It just like comes with, and it was only select to however many people. So I had to buy that like immediately to make sure I had that. But I have the Doctor Strange one, the Sanctum Sanctorum. I have that when that first came out, and a few others. Like I said, I go down rabbit holes, and there was a time where I wanted to build like a Lego city. I started following like YouTubers that just show off. I didn't know it was a thing, but like these massive Lego cities that take up like a whole basement, and it's like as a kid, just like a dream, like of like what you wanted to have as Lego, you know.
I think we should all be, especially as where we are in this hobby now. The three of us all have our own YouTube channels. I think it's safe to say that we should just assume that if there's a thing, there's a YouTuber doing a thing on it. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, if there's something that people do, there's a YouTuber doing something on it. Like, and not just one, several.
Oh yeah. Community.
Yeah. So I do want to circle back. You're a huge X-Men fan. Talk to me about the genesis of that.
Yeah, so like I never used to be. I know like people talk about the 90s and stuff, like the series and everything else, like the animated series. I dabbled in that as a kid, but never hooked. It was never really hooked on it. Obviously, I watched like the X-Men live action films as they came out. But even that, I was just like, oh, these are cool. Like, didn't really consider comics at all. Just kind of watched the movies for what they were and moved on. And yeah, like getting into comics, even that, like I remember specifically thinking like, wow, there's a lot of X-Men books on the wall. Like at like my first couple of weeks going back to the comic book store, and it was very intimidating because I'm like, if I ever even wanted to get into it, like where the heck would I start? I don't know what, they had all these different colors, X-Men red, X-Men gold, X-Men blue at the time. And that was like the new stuff. And of course, considering the old stuff, I'm like, it's a lot. Like, let me stick to my just start Daredevil, easy one character kind of thing, and then it wasn't until the pandemic actually that and I had a bit more time on my hand, as a lot of us did, and working from home, that like the mornings beforehand I would always take a moment, and I just remember thinking like, I want to just do something different. I want to change something different with where I'm at with the hobby right now. I'm reading a lot of this and this. I'm collecting this. Let's just like flip it on its head and see what that looks like. So I started to consider other series to get into, and X-Men Claremont was one of the first ones to come to mind because I've always heard a lot of the YouTubers and Instagrammers talk about that run. So just how iconic it was, and not knowing any stories, didn't know the Dark Phoenix saga or anything like that, but I just knew that there were these epic stories. So I actually started with issue 94, went to the Claremont, right where Claremont started.
Did you buy it and just go and buy an X-Men 94?
No, later I did, yes, but not in the beginning. I started out with
on a phone app or something.
Yeah, so I really invested because I was like, I'm doing a lot of reading, and I'm not going to read on my phone because it's just obviously a lot smaller. So I went out and bought an iPad, and I was like, I got like the 12.9 inch, and I'm like, I'm going big. Just put out all the books I want to read on that, and just be able to read it on a nice big screen. And that's definitely, made that experience even better, of course. And I know some people have a negative, experience with the phone stuff, obviously being smaller, but man, I love it. So I was just reading digitally. I had the Marvel Unlimited app where you can get like hundreds of thousands of, comics on there to read for free or for, with their monthly price. So I just did that. And I literally would read one a day, like in the morning, and just like post a picture at my kitchen table before I like started working or whatever. And this is like right at the beginning of the pandemic. And I would just post it as a story. And I turned out like there were a lot of X-Men fans. I had no idea, like the people that were kind of reaching out, and just for a lot of people, it was going down memory lane. They're like, oh my God, I remember that issue 94, 95. Oh my gosh, what happens in that one? It's madness. 96, you get Moira, all these other things. And then John from John's Comics with Kids, he was one who he and I just went back and forth all the time. And he was loving just seeing my experience of going through this, because he had grown up with, some, not that early, but, some of that stuff where he was really following along, and he read a lot of that throughout the year. So And that's where eventually, like, we were like, I think it was like maybe a year into that, he got his first omnibus like ever, and I got mine like literally the same week. Like I just happened to buy. I was like, oh cool, X-Men, the first volume of Claremont came out, and I bought it, and he did too. We were talking about it, and I'm like, oh my god, that'd be cool. We should like make a show or something, and call it like, I don't know, the Omni X-Men or something like. And that was the birth of our show. Like probably 8-9 months into kind of us, just connecting on X-Men. And like ever since then I've just been obsessed. So I continue to read it. Obviously we still do the show. We're continuing on through a lot of that. But I was eager. I wanted to get to the Hickman stuff because everybody was talking about how good it was. And so I was like, okay, my goal was to finish through John Byrne stuff, read all the way up through 143, and then stop there and then jump in and catch up on all the Hickman, because I was a bit behind on that too, and I wanted to buy it live, like Wednesdays like everybody else. So I just binged the crap out of all that and caught back up X of Swords, that whole storyline, and just went from there. And yeah, just so then I've since then been going back and forth. But I'll tell you now, like, I think a lot of people in the community kind of can look at me as like, oh, you're the X-Men guy. You're a big X-Men fan. Like, make it pretty clear. I still am very new. I mean, I'm very new to comics. I'll admit that straight up. Like, there are so many things I'm still learning, so many things I'm exploring still about the comic book community and about the comic book hobby. And so for me, like, sure, I'm an X-Men guy because I like what I've read so far in X-Men, but there's a ton of popular storylines that I still have never read yet. And now at this point, I'm like purposely waiting to get into it on our Omni X-Men show, which is like taking years. I always make jokes about, books that like Jim Lee stuff. I'm like, all right, John, in 2054, we're going to be doing our Jim Lee Omni X-Men, because we'll finally be at that, level or whatever. But like, there's just so much content, as I'm sure you guys know. Like, it's just like the mutants, they reach out to so many extra story arcs. So
yeah, and they all have like a lot of them have their own solo series.
Yeah. It's like, where do you draw the line?
Yeah.
But I'm having fun with it. But
question I have is, do you prefer to have a series that already ran so you can jump in and finish it, or do you like the new Wednesday waiting that week or that month to get the book?
It's kind of like Netflix, right? Would you rather binge an entire show or wait every week?
No, that's a great that's a great question. I mean, it's a little bit of both, and partially because the tie-in that it has to a lot of folks in the community and the talk of that particular week, what's hot, what's going on, what new event just happened. And I always want to kind of be in the note of that. So when I say that, I do like to read up on what the newest stuff is, in part to just being on top of it. But when it just comes to just straight reading, I mean, I rather read like a trade, or just, know that I can read all the way to the end and not necessarily have to wait. I'm kind of like that with shows as well. Like, right now, I know you guys just dropped something about the Penguin. I didn't finish the Penguin yet, but I didn't even start until last weekend. And my wife and I just binged the first 4 episodes. We loved it. Like, can't wait for the rest. We'll probably watch it this weekend. But
JP, you haven't watched it at all, have you?
I still have to add HBO Max to my Disney package. So we talked about Daredevil, the show, earlier. Previously, I would have told you Daredevil season 1, in my opinion, is the best comic book TV show I'd ever seen. In general, like, I think most comic book shows have been quite a letdown. Daredevil, I thought, was excellent, especially season 1. I would say the Penguin tops it. I thought that show was phenomenal. Like, we don't need to get into, but you just binged 1 to 4. Like, episodes 3 and 4 are fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, man. It's some of the best like television point blank.
And
like that's out there right now.
That review that I just dropped today with Spro, well, the first thing I said is like, when I think of like an MCU movie or just comic book movie in general, like, my bar is different than when I'm watching another movie, right? Like, in other movies that are not related to this world, you want to look for a good story, great acting, blah, blah, blah. I don't need Daniel Day-Lewis, like I've said, burning the screen on fire, like, because he's such a good actor. Like, there's just a few good representation of the characters I love, a fun story, and I'm in, right? Yeah. Penguin is an objectively great TV show that even I think a lot of non-comic book people would thoroughly enjoy. Like, it's just it's honestly like a mob kind of like a Sopranos type show. It's excellent. Like,
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, my wife's loving it, and like I said, she's not like, you know, she's like reconfirming. She's like, this is like Batman's world, right? I'm like, yeah, yes, like this is like technically Batman's world. It's that character we want, you know, we saw in Batman, like all that stuff. She always jokes and she's like, so when's Iron Man coming out? Like all that. But yeah, no, I think even for, like you said, like anybody who's not into DC or not even into comics, can easily, you know, get along with this, you know, this run or this series.
Real quick, since we were talking about X-Men, I feel like we can't have that chat without asking who your favorite X-Men is.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah. I will say I feel like I do jump around, and partially because I'm like getting these new these old stories in real time, like the Claremont stuff. As I'm reading, I'm legitimately learning about these characters. So, just like anyone would, as you just, you know, make a decision on who your favorite is, over time that might change based on the things you learn about what they've done or what they, you know, what they accomplished or whatever. So, right now, I mean, Storm is always like pretty much, you know, 1A all the time. But there's always like that other thing that's like, you know, someone else is kind of always there. And I think Kitty Pryde for me is kind of right there with her. So shout out to the ladies, the X-Men ladies out there, because they're awesome characters. And, you know, Storm being just such a badass. The fact that, I mean, her leadership that I see and how much growth she has throughout just the time periods that I've read. And again, granted, I've read the newer Hickman stuff too, but just like, yeah, love her character as a whole, and you know, knowing some of her weaknesses and things like that at the same time. But so yeah, Storm for sure. If I had to pick one, kind of always my number one. A lot of times I'll ask, you know, you mentioned the artwork before. I'll ask like if someone to do like a Storm piece for me as kind of more or less
as we saw with your Assad Ribic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so certain artists, I'm like, all right, like dude, man, I have to say, Rohan, your Nightcrawler that you got from Bob McLeod, man, I
love that. That's my favorite one I got.
I'm so jealous, and I actually remember when he worked. I didn't know it was yours, but I remember he was working at it at the table because I had brought this over for him to do. I wanted him to do a sketch in it, and you know, I had him sign the inside, had Chris do it. I was lugging this thing around, but he was like, oh, you know, I have a long line right now, you know, if you want to come back. And I think it might've been Saturday at that time. And I'm like, well, you know, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to come in Sunday or not. I ended up coming in, but I was like, it's all right. But I kind of remember, I feel like I remember seeing like your sketch either on the table or kind of near it or something at one point. But either way, that's an awesome piece. And that definitely inspired, like I'm going back to him. He's there almost every year, I think. So next year he's on my list. I usually try to get one big piece or bigger piece as far as like a commission to support an artist of some sort, or two, like I'll do a big one for a known artist like him. And then I'll try to find someone that's not as known and support them as well. Just to have a story and show something that I got for that year and kind of puts a staple on, you know, that's what came out of that year. Terrific on, you know, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, I love that piece, man. It's a killer.
No, that was my favorite one from that weekend. With that, you mentioned, you know, you have picked up an X-Men 94. We've talked a lot about your reading and modern. Tell me about the component of collecting vintage comics in your world.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm still, you know, buying as far as like, I don't know. I feel like I'm still a little more run. I lean a little bit more towards like certain runs of things. So I am trying to collect Miss Marvel, the volume 1 from that, and Spider-Woman is another one I'm trying to collect. Those are relatively smaller, so a little easier to do. I think I'm only like 5 to 7 issues away from each of those right now. But I love a lot from that era. And then what did I just buy? I just had I mean, with Halloween just passing and seeing all the amazing books, I like a year and a half to maybe 2 years ago, I started to buy some of the Witching Hour stuff. And that to me, like the DC horror stuff, like that was always something that, you know, intrigued me. So I kind of got back into buying more of that recently, thanks to seeing like the community posting so many amazing books and just forgetting how many great, you know, how many great books there are in that run. And then, yeah, like, I'm trying to think, like a lot of it has to do with like if I'm reading a certain series, like the Nightwing stuff, that's more newer, I guess, not a great example, but like Nightwing, I make sure to own that whole like portion that Tom Taylor did, and some of the older stuff, but vintage, Namor, like literally like this month,
you're gonna be now known as the Namor guy.
Yeah, dude. I mean, like it might come to that at some point. Like, I mean, you saw I got issue 1 like right off the bat. That was like my first one. I not Zap, but another shop that I go to, A&S Comics, that's nearby. They had a kind of a mid low grade copy, and it was $60. I was like, yeah, let's.
That's a great price for Submariner 1.
Yeah, it presents really well, and
for Submariner 1.
Yeah.
He said it's mid to lower.
It was raw. Yeah, yep. Yeah. But it's yeah, presents really well. Yeah, it's but yeah, so I don't know. I've made that a thing in my mind where I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get
JP's upset because he
you know.
has one that he paid more than $60 for.
Oh, okay.
A lot more.
Nice grade. nice 9 point.
It's a 9.8. No, it's like it's probably a mid grade.
Okay.
Fucking,
Well, here's the
pissing
thing.
me
The whole thing with this now is like, from what I've like gathered, and I don't watch too closely anymore than what I used to, but a lot of the comics have come down in price.
Yeah.
There was obviously the boom with the pandemic and everything else, and from there, and I had like X-Men 1 at that point. I remember thinking like, man, I should have, if I was selling my X-Men 1, I should have sold it during that like the biggest boom, and even that is continuing to like come down in price. But I'm just looking back, I'm like, well, I kind of backed off on keys and stuff. Maybe this is kind of the time to get back into, hunting some of those things down, because a lot of them are way more affordable to now than where I've seen them, 2 years ago or whatever.
Absolutely.
So yeah, but yeah, as far as other, I don't know, other vintage stuff, trying to think, X-Men is, I wouldn't call it vintage, but more of just like the Claremont, X-Men run. Like I'm just constantly buying that stuff. I'll admit, like I can't help but rebuy John Byrne X-Men. I rebuy it every time I see it.
Stacking the same issue you're talking
about. Yeah. Like if I see a good copy, I'm just yes, exactly like that. And I'm just like, man, I love that book. So all right, I'm gonna buy that book. Like, and my friends are like, dude, you literally have like 3 copies.
Do you get into like, okay, I got a direct, I got a newsstand, I got a Mark Jewelers, or
I don't go after it per se, but if I see the opportunity, then I'll consider that for sure. Yeah. But I don't necessarily like go hunting for a lot of that stuff. I've gotten lucky and found like a couple of, a Mark Jeweler from the Dark Phoenix saga, one of those issues. That was a surprise. The guy that sold to me didn't even know it was in there. And I think I ordered it. I think I bought it like on Instagram and he shipped it.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, I met up with Dan at a con this past Saturday.
Oh, I saw it. Yeah.
And there are a number of, I think it's just because these dealers get these collections and they get big collections and multiple collections at the same time, that I think you kind of poke through them, you peel out the big keys, you get those priced correctly, and then the rest kind of go in like, for like X-Men Claremont, you could slap, anywhere between $15 and $30 on them if they're, mid-grade, or let's just say, you just kind of throw them out there.
Yeah.
I don't think because like Dan, like that's exactly what we found. Like he found this box and like, it was clearly like, must have been a collection that came from near a military base or something, because Dan picked out like 5 Mark Jewelers that were unknown. Yeah. And again, it's like, I just imagine it's a function of like, the dealer doesn't have time to go through every single book.
For sure.
And so, when it's not a huge money maker, like he probably just like, $15 is going to be more than enough for me on this book.
Yep.
And so then guys that have a little more time and don't deal in such a volume like Dan can just kind of poke through there, and there's one. So
Is there a military base near you guys where Dan finds all this shit in Seattle?
I mean, Washington, where I live, I don't know if this is a true statement, but Washington has like, if Washington was to secede as its own country, it would have like the 7th biggest military force in the world. Like there are bases all over Washington. Oh, wow. And of all branches, Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, it's all here.
I guess because you guys are closest to Russia there. Besides
I mean, we're on the coast there, and there's also like the different, like you can go from desert to the mountains. Like there's a lot to offer in terms of variety for them to have for different training purposes. So there's a lot of military around it. Now Dan's in Oregon, where I couldn't name a single military base in Oregon, but again, it's all on the West Coast. So, but I mean, I think like he's trained his eye to find that little strip.
Yep.
And so
I don't know why it is, but I think they're the coolest thing when I never find them. Like I said, I found 5 of them, and I think 2 of them were sent to me, one by Dan and one by Bruce. And other than that, I found the other 3 or 4. And I've gone through antique stores from up the eastern seaboard, North Carolina, New York, Long Beach, California, Indianapolis, and I found 3 or 4 of them myself.
Damn.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think those and double covers are probably the coolest things to find, and I've never found a double cover.
Well, yeah, I mean, a double cover to find, you'd have to like physically take the book out, open it up.
It'd have to be a book you want. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, oh yeah, this is a cool whatever, and pull it out. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh wow, double cover.
I will
Yeah.
say, like, I know with the Mark Jewelers, like, you look at the top, and again, I'm not someone that goes hunting like that, and so I just had always assumed it was very prominent. But like when Dan was showing me, it's not as prominent as
I
I
don't think.
thought it would be. Like when looking
Yeah.
at the top. So me, who if I was someone that was not looking specifically for that, I would absolutely go right past that and not notice it. Right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, it is trickier in that sense. I was gonna say I did recently find, or not, it's probably been like 6 months now, but I did find a Wolverine, like the mini series Wolverine Frank Miller. I think it was issue 2 or 3 as my first as a natural find as I bought it. I actually bought it from Zap. I don't know if they knew or they didn't know, but that I had a double page in that.
But
So
I
that was
mean,
pretty
I
cool
actually
double
saw
cover.
a post today. I can't remember who it was, and it was this guy that was like, "Oh, my wife got me this X-Men 266 newsstand for my birthday last year," and he's like, "It was a 9.2," and I always just felt like, this has a potential to bump. So I cracked it today. I guess it's his birthday again. He's like, "I cracked it finally." He's like, "Look, and there's a Mark Jewelers in there." So like,
Oh,
even
that's amazing.
CGC
Yeah,
misses these
yeah.
things.
Wow.
So
Wow. Yeah, that's I'm surprised. That's a great surprise when you can
yeah,
have something like that
yeah,
happen to you. Nice.
yeah. Real quick, tell people about, again, you've talked a little bit about that. You've talked a lot about your Omni, uh,
Omni
I just
X-Men.
like Omni X-Men channel,
Yeah.
but you also have a channel very similar to what we're doing here, where you sit down with people. Tell us
Oh
about
yeah.
that real quick.
Yeah, yeah. So again, this was probably this is like 2021, and end of 2021 that I made or I started a show of my own. Yeah, similar. It's called Comic Collector Origins, and it's strictly to just like learn about our friends and fellow collectors and their origin and how they got started with things. And that honestly like changed my world because and I'm sure it did for you guys. Like you just get to know, you make these friends and these connections with people
Mhm.
that are legit. Like you're always going to remember that, and you're always going to stay in touch. You're always going to just know those people. And like for me, and we come from all walks of life, right? Different backgrounds and everything else. Some people are brand new, other people have been doing it since they were practically babies, and some people stopped in between and jumped back in. All these different things. I know the pandemic brought a lot of people in, so it's just cool to hear these stories, these backgrounds. I used to do a lot of like talk show host type of stuff with other podcasts and things like that for other hobbies that I'm into, so it always kind of came natural to like do some of that stuff. So I wanted to like apply that to something that I could be doing. I used to be like a motivational speaker as well, so like that tied into this was all in one. And I'm like, I need to talk. Like I want to like and so interviewing kind of came natural. And then I just started having people on. And sure enough, like I did take a break. Like this is me. I just started it up again. I know since we had met and talking about it, I'm like, I'm thinking about bringing my show back. It's been a little while. A big part of that was like just the fact that the pandemic, like, once the world opened up more again, and
You got
everybody
busy
had
again.
lives. Yeah, I'm like, and I used to have it on Saturday, 2:00 Eastern, every Saturday. And I was pretty tight about, hey, I'm doing this every week, like straight up, like weekly. And people would come on a Saturday because, no one was going outside on a Saturday. I mean, you couldn't do much on a Saturday. So once things opened up, I got busier. I know a lot of people got busier, and I'm like, as I'm thinking of bringing the show back, I'm like, I can't ask people like, I feel like I can't ask people to like, come watch my show at 2 on a Saturday and expect a lot of people to come, because it's just, I get it. Everybody has lives and we're all able to go out and do things. So, and again, me and my wife, we like to do a lot of stuff on weekends. So, and travel and things like that. So it just like didn't work. So now I moved it to Wednesdays. And I kind of do it then. And even that, it's not weekly. It's just kind of like what suits me and my whoever my guests are at the time. So right now it's like two a month kind of is where I'm at the moment. But I'm actually going to be interviewing Noah Broke Boy, who I know you guys had just done. I purposely didn't watch that one because I'm like, I want to hear his origin, and I don't want to hear it and be like, I already knew that. Like, like,
you don't want to recreate.
like I want my genuine reactions and kind of hear them out. So I did watch the pocket full of comics that you guys did. That was a really cool one. But I mean, you guys must, you get the same thing, right? Just the connections and the friendships
I love
you
it.
make. And,
I mean, as I've mentioned many times before, like I really don't care about sub count and views and things like that. I just enjoy doing this on a weekly basis, and that's why I do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's super fun, and it's cool. Like you meet people, you hear what they're about, and it's like it's fun. Then like I'll like be scrolling on Instagram and I'll see something. It'll be remind me of something we talked about with whoever from a few episodes ago, and I'll send it to them, and you just kind of keep that conversation rolling. It's fun. I really enjoy that.
Absolutely.
I do want to ask though, as we get kind of start getting towards the end here, you are now in deep in comics.
Yeah.
Have you now since not saying that you don't have a close relationship with your dad, but have you now both reconnected about comics? Like, how does that?
Big time. Yeah, it's like a whole different level. It's quite, I feel very lucky to have this experience, and it's just such a unique experience that I think not a lot of people have in whether it's comics or whatever. But it's where it's like, yeah, we've always like had this great relationship at this level. And that was without comics. And things have always just been good. Like we talk football, we talk about everything else, family, love, all this stuff, like what families do. But the comics things was never really there. I never really like checked up and to say like, how's work, or what's your projects, or what are you doing now, or what's some drama you're dealing with, or whatever. Like never really got into any of that, or even to talk about the stories. Never got any of the opportunities. So when I did finally get into it, and when I did break it to my dad that I was into it, I remember his reaction being like, really? Like now? Like, what the hell?
I've been trying to tell you this whole time.
Yeah. And I'm like, hey, don't attack me. Better late than never, right? And so, but at the same time, he was so happy because he's just like, tell me, like, let me hear, like, where you at? Where's your mind, with the hobby? And I'm like, well, I'm checking out these guys right now. I'm going back. I'm reading, like, he knows, like, I'm doing the New Mutants and all this stuff. And he finds it fascinating that I'm like, the John Byrne stuff and the X-Men and all that stuff. And that I'm even gravitating towards that, even though there's new comics out as well. And he has an appreciation that I am kind of balancing into both. He's just like, it's just a different level that we've now connected because I can relate to so much more, or he can relate things to me so much more, where we understand things. He's shared a lot of, really great stories, or just like, personal moments in his career that I never would have like realized how big of a moment was for him, or hurtful, or whatever the case was, just throughout his career. And so to hear these stories now is like life-changing. It's really like, and that's why I say I'm lucky, because it's just like, it's crazy to think if I never got into this, that I wouldn't have this extra, I wouldn't have known that there was this next level, to connect with my dad on. So, and then like, I mean, you guys, I don't know if you guys got to meet him or see him at Terrificon, but like for me, I used to always go to shows with him all the time. As a little kid, used to go to like New York City Comic Con, like the big one. He would always go to that. He'd bring me with him. He'd have a table set up in Artist Alley. And I would just have no idea what I was around. Had no idea the other artists and creators and writers that I sat near. Didn't care for it. Like I'm like in my own little world, sitting at the table, probably playing Game Boy Pocket, Pokemon Red or something, and just like chilling, and now I'm into it. And for me to have the experience I had with him at Terrificon that just passed was just, it's just life-changing. And it was really cool too, because like, the community was very supportive, which again, anybody who was able to stop by and say hi or buy something from him or whatever, like, I appreciate that so much. And it was just cool to like see that or hear that. And I think they even nicknamed him now. They call him Papa No Good. I said, sorry, that wasn't me. I didn't give you that one. That was three men in the basement. Yeah, they do that stuff, man. So, but no, he had fun with it. He went along with it. And he thought it was cool too, just to hear, people were saying, bringing me up, like, oh, I know your son, or we've connected, or we've streamed together or whatever. And, him hearing stories the other way around, as it's just like a cool, unique experience, overall. But yeah, I mean, we look forward to more. It was his first time at Terrificon. That's my favorite show. So I can't wait to, get back there again. I hope you guys come back, man. I really do. I don't know how, by the way, this is a side thing, but Rohan, I feel like we met, but like we didn't get to hang out. Like JP, I was like hunting with JP for bits at a time. We had like dinner or lunch together. Like, and I'm like, where was Rohan this whole time?
That's totally fair, because
what were you doing?
I'll explain. Like, I mean, so when I went to Terrificon, again, like we've talked about, like the books that I collect. So at the time, my one book that I was like, if I can find a Jim 83 there, that's what I want to get. Otherwise, if I don't find it, I'm not going to just buy something to buy something.
Sure.
Right. Jim 83 is a book that if a dealer has it, it's going to be on the wall. I don't need to go digging for it, right? So in terms of like going booth to booth kind of hunting, like I didn't spend a ton of time doing that, but what I spent a lot of my time was I got all those sketches, which I really enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
And so most of my time when I was on the floor was going from artist to artist, getting those sketches. And so that's why. I mean, like when we did hang out for a little bit, it was in the after hours.
And there's so many circles. I know there's I know there's so many circles.
What'd you say, JP?
Rohan was all business, the whole signatures and stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, not to mention like there was just because again, like there was the group of us that we had all planned it together was like 9 of us.
Right.
But then from there, the circles on circles on circles.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying? Like
totally.
We mentioned this last week. Like we had Noah on. Noah was there, and I didn't even get around to actually say, "Hey, I'm Rohan." And meet him. And I only talked to Noah post Terrificon. Right. And now I've chatted, like we were talking about Penguin the other day, and like
nice.
you know what I'm saying, like so no, you're not wrong. Like that's absolutely a true statement.
I'm just busting your chops, but no, like you're right. I mean, it's like it's obviously so big too, right? I mean, there's so many things to do, and like you said, there's like so many circles, and you want to spend time with people you don't get to see a lot, or you're in different areas, and it's hard to be everywhere at once. I know at one point, like I was at Craps for a lot of the night with Dan, even throwing dice or whatever.
I distinctly remember Dan was like, "Justin's going to teach me how to play Pai Gow tonight." I think.
We did talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and that's why actually when I think about it, like because that was such a fun weekend, and we've talked about like doing Heroes Con this next weekend. So
nice.
My goal I think will be to always try and get like one big like weekend Comic-Con trip, somewhere outside of the Seattle area. The one thing I would do differently is so like for Terrificon, I flew in Friday because I did the red eye Thursday night. I flew in Friday morning. Yeah. So it was like Mike picked me up and then we went right into the show. Right. And then essentially I left Sunday. So what I would like to do next time has like, there was a few people, like JP was one of them. They got there Thursday, got to spend a lot of time with folks and hanging out before like the actual like show activities started.
Yeah.
And that's definitely what I want to do on the next round. To be able to spend just more time hanging out with people.
100%. I would definitely recommend it. Me and just a few others were actually there. My wife and I went Wednesday. We were there. Otto was there Wednesday. We joke about, being like the only 2 guys there on a Wednesday. Like who goes there on a Wednesday? But like, man, it was, I tell anybody now, like just bite the bullet. And like, I know some friends that are somewhat local who just drive up 40 minutes or whatever, and they don't stay. And I'm like, dude, just do yourself a favor. Stay at least one night because the nightlife there is so much fun. And like you're saying, if you could do the whole weekend, I highly recommend it because once you're in like Comic-Con mode, you're kind of working like JP said, like you're all business, like in a way you have your priorities, you got
your plan, you're attacking the plan.
Exactly. So at least that Thursday you can relax. A lot of guys are out at the bar or out to dinner or something to that effect, and then then you can go at it from there. And even Friday, like I try to make Friday be my do most of the work that time. And then all day Saturday, I'm just like taking my sweet time. I'm standing around talking to people, just doing more of what we're doing here, and maybe a little bit of digging or whatever. But I try to knock a lot of stuff out Friday. And then, so this year I'm going to even go longer. I'm going to go Wednesday to Monday. I usually leave Sunday, like midday, but I'm actually going to stay till Monday next time because my wife and I love casinos and we go to a bunch like all the time, just for everything that comes with a casino. We just enjoy it. And so for her, it's like a whole getaway for her. So she's like, when I'm in the con and I'm there for the con, she's off doing her thing. And then even when I'm not, like I'm with her doing our thing. And then she knows a lot of folks. She's met a lot of the friends.
Was she there?
She was.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I definitely didn't meet her.
We met her when we were upstairs on the 30th floor.
That's right.
The show, she was there on Saturday. I think Saturday night
for the 3 men. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I totally missed that then.
So but they like so we and again she's not big into comics, but she knows a lot of the guys now, and it's just a good time. Like we're all out, and she actually won 2 big jackpots that night. Big like hand pays where you have to come. You can only get paid out by hand. It was a slot machine. It was like 1:00 in the morning Saturday, and I was with I was with Ryan. I was with a bunch of the guys, Classic Collector and a few others. But like, I remember at one point she just comes over. It's like 1 a.m. and she goes, "Hey, I just got a hand pay." I'm like, "Oh my god! Like, how much you make?" And she's like, "I just won $1,300." And I was like, "Whoa! Like, that's awesome." And one little thing you should know, my wife and I, we have a deal where if either one of us wins a bonus or a jackpot of
split it?
1,000 or more, not split, but the other person gets a quarter of it.
Okay.
So I immediately got a quarter of the $1,300. That was at 1 a.m. She came back at like 2:30, 2:45 in the morning. Comes back again. She goes, I just hit another hand pay. And I'm like, look, I've never heard anybody hit 2 hand pays in 1 week compared to one 2-hour span. Yeah, it was insane. I'm like, that's like, she's like domino. And so she I was like, how much you win this time? She goes, $2,000. I'm like, yeah. And everybody at the bar is like, all right, round of drinks. Justin, like,
that's great. That's great. I mean,
it was cool. Yeah.
I mean, you guys definitely like. I roomed with Dan and Bruce, and I probably called it right around 1, I want to say, and like there was definitely some of you guys that were out till way later than that.
Oh yeah,
I think Friday was out. Maybe one of the nights we were out till at least 2.
Yeah, I think that was the first night. Yeah, well, I don't remember. Like, but there was all my point would be is when I went to bed, it was late, and there were people that stayed out well beyond that.
Oh yeah, and some of us still made it on time for the show.
Yeah, I mean, Justin, we already have established you are far younger than JP and I. Like the late we were out is way late relative to what I normally do. So, at this point, like I'm 41. I will tell you there are less than 5 nights a year that I'm up past 1 a.m. I mean, it may be even like 3 at the most.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but you get up at like 4 a.m. though. That's the difference.
Yeah. I do, but like on a night, like I don't do that on the weekends, though. For example, so I was like, even on the weekends, I'm not staying up that late.
Right. Yeah, well, just nice little Red Bull vodka that'll keep you going. Something to that effect. I love that show. I'm glad that you guys, were able to make it. And you mentioned Heroes Con, like that is on my list. It's the one probably other than San Diego. That's probably the one other bigger one in the States that I haven't experienced yet. And I'm going to try to go this upcoming year. I'll see. But Terrificon's like a staple for me. I go every year to that one.
Yeah. I mean, if you can drive there, it would, if I could drive there, it would 100% be an annual weekend.
Yeah. The flight for you is what, at least 5.5, I assume.
Yeah.
Something like that. So yeah, I don't blame you. If you do come back, you definitely got to let me know for sure. I know some of the guys are sold. Ryan is sold. Some of the other guys I talked to, but it's a good time. I
know like Colossus Ryan, he said, I mean, because he can drive there, so he said he's going to go again.
Yeah. Like I'd have to fly to Heroes Con, but I mean, I'm okay with that. But
with Heroes Con, everyone in that crew, everyone.
North Carolina. I thought from Jersey, you just down like it's like 14 hours or 12 hours for you, right?
I mean, that's a long drive.
Yeah, it's that. Yeah, it's that. And I've only done that drive once, and I did it actually in a massive RV, and I barely knew what I was doing. But I did that drive once, and I'm not I wasn't a fan. So I'll just.
No, I mean, we did 9 hours. It's 9 hours to get to Connecticut from where I live in Colossus, and we just stopped at Mon's house, which was like 4.5.
Right. You made it a trip. That's right. That's cool.
Yeah. So I mean, I would just suggest find a midpoint and do that because. I don't know if I could do both in the same year, Heroes and Terrificon, but it's really hard to go to any other show because of how good Terrificon was. Like every show since then has been a real like.
Well, I mean, again, too, like the one of the better parts about Terrificon is the fact that not that I'm a big casino guy, but with a casino you get a contained environment.
Yes.
Right.
Agreed.
Like
you don't have to go home.
I didn't see the sun for 3 days. We'd have to leave. Right.
Just the Mohegan sun.
Exactly what they wanted. Exactly what they wanted.
Like Heroes Con being in Charlotte, right? It's going to involve a lot more, outside the convention kind of activities.
I mean, kind of like I already have my hotel room for Heroes Con set up.
There you go.
Oh, you do? Oh, nice. Okay. What days are you going? Are you going like the whole time?
Yeah, I think I'm getting Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, and then leaving Sunday was the plan. But
nice.
I think if we can get, and it was probably easier to do a Terrificon to get a big Airbnb with everybody, whereas it might be difficult because that's outside of Raleigh.
Yeah. Well, no, it's in Charlotte. It's like
Charlotte, so it's more city. So to get to the suburbs would be a drive and traffic.
Right.
Whereas at Mohegan, I had a place that was literally a mile down the road from Terrificon.
Oh,
we
you
had
were
like
staying at an Airbnb.
No,
we were
he
going
he
to.
he was he it was a option that we looked at.
I see.
And it was literally like a block or two away.
Yeah.
And Colossus was the one that said, no, I want to be on site. And I'm like, all right. So then we all just did our own thing, and everyone stayed on site. But that was like the thought, to get one big room.
Yeah.
And I don't think the same would be possible for Charlotte, but it definitely could be possible for Terrificon next year.
We did something like that for Baltimore. We got an Airbnb for Baltimore Con. This was a few years ago, but there was like 5 of us that kind of split something. So that is cool. I mean, it is fun if you can, have that and just pal out with everybody. But yeah, I mean, terrific. I'm glad you guys stayed on site for Terrificon, because I feel like there's nothing better than that. Like, if you gotta I mean, you could do it and stay at a hotel down the street, or whatever, but it's just nice to like not have to get an Uber or worry about driving.
Yeah, you want the full experience. I think staying on site. I mean,
if you get a place 6 months to 7 months before, it was half price if you got it in January, February. But by the time you got to I don't know, July, it was back to regular price.
Yep, it's coming up soon. I think they go on sale this month. I think technically, or I think the tickets go on sale, I should say. But I do think they eventually open the hotel. I mean, my wife's usually like on it. She'll.
Well, with all the winnings she has,
she already paid for next year.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. We actually got a free room at that same time. It was like for the Thursday, Friday before the show started.
You guys are whales.
And they gave us, like, it was in the other set, the Earth Tower, which is still a really nice tower.
I mean, that's where Dan and we stayed.
It's a good spot. And they gave it it was a corner suite, and we booked it just because. So we actually had 2 rooms for a little bit of the time. But we actually gave the rooms to my buddy Roger Levesque from 3 Men in a Basement. Him and his wife. They were staying off at another hotel. I was like, at least for the nights here, it's not Saturday or whatever, but at least Thursday, Friday, take the room. Like, it's, otherwise I was going to throw a party, and I was going to, just invite kind of what 3 Men do, how the 3 Men in a Basement do the live shows. I was going to kind of do something like that, but, it worked out. But, definitely book ahead if you can. If you are planning to go, for anyone watching, jump on it ahead of time. It's a good show. Well.
Yeah. Awesome. Justin, this has been a fun little hour we've had. Thanks for coming on. To wrap up, just kind of go through the list where people can find you, and then we'll close it out.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I like I said before, I kind of live on Instagram. That's kind of always been my number one. So KnowGood Comics, just here, like it sounds, or like I should say KNOW. I have had corrections on that. And then otherwise, YouTube, same handle. Those are really the only 2 I'm really on. I mean, technically, I have like a Twitter.
Is the Omni X-Men Omni on the KnowGood channel too?
So we split it up. So John and I do every other episode, every other Tuesday
on like each other's channel.
On each other's channels. Okay. Yeah. So we'll do that back and forth on Tuesdays, and then Wednesday, like I said, well, technically tonight, we're recording this, but I'll have my Origins show. So, but that's going to be changing up around the different schedules. But I always announce it over on Instagram when things are coming up. But otherwise, for anyone watching, like, you ever want to talk comics, just reach out. It's what I love to do. Just you want to binge something, you want to do a buddy read on something, I'm down. And same with you guys. Like, anytime you're exploring anything, let me know. I love to connect on that level and explore reading some more. So
Namor collectors unite. No good.
Yeah.
Namor numero uno fan.
So yes sir. Well, I appreciate you guys for having me. Really, I was going to tell you, and we'll talk offline more, but definitely want to have you guys on at some point.
Absolutely.
Or even just other things, just to get you on, because honestly, like, I could just sit here and hang and talk with you guys.
Yeah, 100%.
All the time.
100%.
Yeah.
All right, let's JP, you want to take us out?
All right, like I always say, believe in yourself, and you'll get back into the hobby eventually, even when you're 29 years old, which I think is awesome. So, peace out, everybody. See you in the next video.
Later.
Later.